This is our herd of some of our original alpines that we first started out with. The one I'm petting here, her name is Poppy. She was born here on this farm. She is Pepper's daughter. Pepper's up there. She is very, very sweet. She is 2 years old. Last year she had that girl Truffle. Truffle is a boar alpine cross. Her dad is Red, our big red buck. And like I said, Poppy's her mom this year. She had 2 alpine babies, a boy and a girl. And she is fully dried off. She is no longer producing milk. We didn't choose to keep her in production, so she is just hanging out and waiting for her next opportunity to be a mom again. This girl, who is also very friendly here on my leg, her name is Goldilocks. She is a year and a bit old. She's last year's baby. We did not breed her last year. She was kind of on the cusp of being big enough or not, so I chose not to breed her, but she would be a good one to breed this year. She is a boar alpine cross, also called a boar pine, like Truffle, and the other boar alpine cross we have is her. Her name is Katniss Everdeen, named after the survivor in a famous book series and movie series. She is Bree's daughter. Bree had triplets last year. 2 of them sadly did not survive. One died within minutes of birth, and another one died a couple days later. And Katniss was our last girl standing, and as you can see, she pulled through and thrived, and she is also super duper sweet. The 3 of them are actually currently for sale. We are moving away from that particular cross and focusing more on the registered goats, so looking out for the right home for the 3 of them. Up here right on the fence line, do a aerial shot. This is Pepper, and Pepper is one of our older does. She is 4 years old, and right next to her is Bree. Bree is a year older than Pepper, so she is 5, and the 2 of them are both registered alpines. They are some of our best milkers, and they are both currently still in milk, so we are still milking them and using their milk for our family and also selling it to some of our customers. Over here, if you can come over here, we have Calypso. We recently trimmed her hooves, so if you watched our hoof trimming episode, you would have seen her. She is our oldest goat on the farm. She is 10 years old. She's Goldilocks' grandmother, and she's Katniss' great-grandmother, so she's got some generations behind her, but she is an excellent milker. She is my only doe who will milk through past all the way her pregnancy and do a second year of milking if I don't rebreed her, so we're trying to keep some of her good milking genes in our herd. This little cutie is Abby. She is a Nigerian dwarf, which is why she is more portable. She's super sweet. She is one of Layla's triplets from this year, and she just has absolutely gorgeous colors. We originally had planned to retain her in our herd, but decided to add some more registered stock in. She unfortunately can't be registered because Layla is not registered, so we are on the lookout for a good home for her, but she is super duper friendly, and I'm very sure she'll find a great home here soon. We have Moon Pie, who we recently were milking. She is Calypso's granddaughter as well. She is 3 years old. She was a mom this year, and her babies have already moved on, but she is one of our best milkers. Thank you for coming over. She's super friendly. She's named after the Tennessee treat moon pies, and she is very, very sweet girl. This is Sweet Pea. She is 87.5% registered ABGA boar. She's gorgeous with her dapples. She is a year and a half old, and she will be in our breeding cycle this year, most likely with our gorgeous Quasar. And this is Winnie. She is a 100% registered boar. She is also a year and a half, and neither of them had babies this past spring. They weren't of size yet, so they will both be first-time moms next spring. The goat next to them, who's in everyone's business, is Lulu. Lulu is one of our 2 Kiko goats. We do not have a Kiko buck, so we do not breed full-blood Kikos, but we do use them as some crossbreeding, either with our alpines or our boars sometimes. She is super sweet. We bought her as a kid 2 years ago, so she was a great mom for us this past season. She had a nice baby boy, and she was a great mom, and we also use her now as a surrogate mom for a dam-raised kid who we have who is not yet fully weaned. So she helps us out by letting her nurse off of her. We call her our golden retriever because she kind of looks like that, and she's super friendly, likes to get up in everybody's faces and see what's going on with everybody. Next we have Granite. She and her twin sister Palm are a year and a half old. They were December babies, and she had a single baby girl this year. She is a crossbreed. She is half Kiko and half Alpine. Her dad is Bo, and her mom is Kiki, our other full Kiko that we have, and she's super sweet. Her sister's Palm, so they were Palm and Granite. Kind of a little joke we had there with the 2 of them. Very friendly, as you can see. She is looking for a new home, so if anybody's inspired by her adorableness and sweet nature, just let us know. Over there laying down, we have first, the black one is Layla. She is an unregistered Nigerian dwarf, so her babies cannot be registered, but she is a Nigerian dwarf. Just one of her grandparents wasn't registered, so she can't be either, unfortunately, but she's super sweet. She's mostly black with a couple tan spots on her. She had triplets last year, and she had triplets this year, so we'll meet. We have her one baby girl is still with us. The bucklings have already moved on to new homes, and she usually gives us black babies, but we did have a very fun tan one this year out of her. That was the baby girl. Next to her is Fern. Fern is a new addition to our herd since a couple months ago. She is an ADGA registered Alpine. She is amazing. She has the sweetest personality. We really love her and are super happy to have her as part of our herd. She did not have kids this year. She did last year. They just chose not to breed her this past breeding season, which sometimes breeders make that choice for one reason or another. And we are really excited to see her babies next spring. Behind her is Nancy. We call her Fancy Nancy. She is from the same herd as Fern, but they're not related. And she, as you can see, is super friendly, very curious, absolutely gorgeous. I've never seen an Alpine with such pretty coloring to her before, and obviously the camera is super interesting. She is a baby from this spring. She has some great growth in her. She's an excellent size for her age, and I hope that we might be able to breed her in November or December when she's had sufficient time to grow, but she's definitely on a great growth trajectory for us to be able to do that. But as with all our breedings, we will watch her growth and her weight, and we will make a decision appropriate for her health when the time comes for us to put those breeding groups together. This beautiful lady is Reba. Reba is a 25% registered Bordeaux. She is 5 years old. We got her 2 years ago, and she is very sweet. She's a little bit more standoffish, but that can sometimes be better for photography purposes because she's not eating the camera, but she's posing nicely for us. She is a star mama this year. She actually had quintuplets. They all survived, which was wonderful, and they all thrived, which is even better. She had 1 girl and 4 boys, and the girl ended up being adopted by one of her herd mates, which was pretty cool. Doesn't happen very often at all. No, it doesn't, she agrees, but it was really nice. So she only had 4. We did end up using some surrogate nursers to help her out with the load, because 4 babies is an awful lot, especially when you just were pregnant with 5. So her smallest of those babies was 5.5 pounds at birth. The biggest was 8. And just to give you some reference, a boar twin you would expect to be maybe 7 to 9 pounds, and we had 2 of them were at 8 pounds even as quintuplets, and then for the other 3 to be in the 5 to 7 range. That was a lot of babies. She had about 35 to 40 pounds of babies and birthing materials in her, so she lost a lot of weight that day that she gave birth. But she is a gorgeous red boar, and we're happy to have her in our herd. Behind us we have Palm. Palm is Granite's twin sister. Palm did not have any babies this year. This is a great example of us making our choices in our herd as to who we feel is large enough and ready to have babies versus not. So her sister Granite was the favorite of the mom, and her mom let her nurse a lot more, and consequently she grew a lot faster. Palm was not the favorite and did not grow as quickly, so she was undersized versus what we would have liked her to be to breed her. So she did not breed last fall, but Granite did. So she is super friendly, and if you notice the tear in her ear, that is a injury that she had. We believe somebody stepped on her ear, and she tugged because they stepped on her ear, and it tore her ear, and that's why she has a little bit of a, it looks like a bite, but the vet said no, that definitely wouldn't have been a bite injury. That looks like a crush injury. So the best guess was she was having a good snooze, laying her head on the ground. Somebody stepped on her ear, she pulled and tore the ear off. So she's got a little bit of character in that ear there. This is Gretchen. She's also a 25% ABGA registered doe. She is 2 years old, so she was born March 2022. She is a really sweet girl. She has a couple dapples on her, but mostly just the belt. She had a fantastic single baby boy this spring. He was huge. He continues to be huge. He's got a great build on him, and she only had the one, so he got all her milk, and you can tell because he is a really big boy. But she is sweet, and we look forward to seeing what babies she has for us again next year. We have our very pretty Violet. She is also 2 years old now. She's a ADGA registered Nigerian dwarf with gorgeous blue eyes and gorgeous moon spots on her. We kept her. She is our own breeding. We have both parents. Violet, now you can see on the other side, she is just absolutely stunning with her coloring, and she's also super sweet. She did not have babies this past year. We did try breeding her with one of our younger bucks. She was not really very interested in him, so that just didn't work out because she said I don't really care for you this year, so we are going to try again here in a couple of months, and hopefully now that he's a little bit older, because he was a young buckling at the time, and sometimes they just aren't bucky enough for the girls yet, so hopefully he has a better aroma to him and she just takes a bigger fancy to him this year. But she is really sweet and loves to get cuddled, and we can't wait to see what beautiful babies she gives us next season. And right below her is her mother. This is Hazel. Hazel is also obviously an ADGA registered Nigerian dwarf. She has some beautiful dapples to her, which is where Violet gets her dapples from. And she is a little bit more standoffish versus some of the other ones, but she's improved a lot since we've been working with her on being a bit friendlier. But now that she has an audience and some other goats are deciding to pick a fight with her, like Layla right now, she probably doesn't really want to be petted right now. She's busy telling other goats to leave her alone. She had twins last year. Obviously, Violet was the one of them, and her brother moved on to a new herd, and this year Hazel had triplets. Unfortunately, one of them was stillborn. It was our only stillborn this year out of 30 babies, which is really quite a good statistic. And but she did have a buckling and a doeling who survived. They looked basically identical copies of the twins that she had had the previous year, so that was really interesting to see. It was kind of cool because I could just show people Violet and say, this is what we think your little girl is going to grow up like, because they really look identical as babies. So these are our set of girl triplets. We met them also indoors when we were doing some vaccinations with them. The one in the back with the black head, her name is Ophelia. The one next to her, also in the back a little bit but tan, is Iris. And the one who looks almost identical to her but her face is a little bit less white is Eleanor. We chose those names. They are all female characters in Shakespeare plays. That's where we got the names from. We try to have each of our does has a theme to her kids' names. It kind of helps us remember who's our who's. We are pretty close with our goats and probably would remember anyway, but it's also just kind of a fun thing to help us argue less about what to name the babies. If we've got a certain theme, we try to stick within that theme, and it minimizes a little bit your choice. Otherwise, you have literally millions of things you could choose from. The beautiful doe who just walked in front of them is their mom. Her name is Ladybug. She is 25% registered ABGA boar doe. She is a great mom. She raised all three of those herself, and they're doing great. Iris was tiny as a baby. She weighed way less than her sisters, but she caught up, and she's actually now the heaviest of the three of them. So Ladybug did a really nice job raising the three of them. She obviously has some gorgeous dapples to her, which Ophelia took a few of, and Eleanor and Iris did not, but that's okay. It'll be interesting to see if their babies follow those dapples through to the next generation or not. And our final doe in here to meet is Heidi. Heidi is also 25% ABGA registered boar doe. She is what they call a traditional coloring, which is the white body with the colored head. And she also had a single buckling this season for us. He also is a very large boy because he had the benefit of being a single. The singles tend to be born slightly larger, and then they benefit from not sharing the milk supply with a sibling. So he is an excellent size for his age, and he is basically a mini copy of his mom. He looks really just like her, and he's very sweet as well. This is Kiki. She is our second Kiko doe that we have. Again, we don't have any Kiko bucks, so we do not have purebred Kikos that we raise, but we have the two here, does that we bought in. Kikos are known for being very hardy meat goat breed. They tend to be very worm resistant, and that was a trait I wanted to bring into some of our crossbreeding. She is an excellent mom. She's also a very good milker, even though she is a meat goat. We milk her. We milk most of our meat goats. Yes, we do. We do, Kiki. I'm not lying. And some of them give not very much milk, but still some. And she is an example of a meat goat who gives a really nice amount of milk, not quite as much as our Alpines give, but she's actually pretty close. And she is an excellent mother. Palm and Granite were her twin baby girls last year. This year she had a pregnancy. She gave birth the same day as Reba, but in her case, her birth was an empty sac, so she had an embryonic pregnancy. This is the first time I've ever experienced that, but basically what happens is her body believes she is pregnant, that she had a successful fertilization, and her body develops as if she has a successful pregnancy. She gives birth as if she was giving birth, and she does give birth, but she gives birth to an empty sac. So she had all the afterbirth, etc., but there was never an embryo or a baby that developed in that sac. The cool thing is she gave birth in the same stall with Reba, who had quintuplets, and what that meant was she thought that Pink, who was standing with her just a minute ago, was her baby girl, and she fully adopted her as if she was her natural born baby and raised her fully as her own. And as you can see, Pink is our largest baby. She is the largest, even including the boys that were born at the same time as her. She, like I said, had a mom who adopted her with a very good milk supply. That was her milk supply. So even though she's a quintuplet, she grew up almost as a single baby and had a lot of good milk and grew really well. And that's her up on the playset right now. That is Pink. Like I said, she was a quintuplet this year. She is looking for a new home. She's very, very sweet, very nice red Bordeauxling. Great size, probably could breed her earlier than you would typically breed a boar because she is such a great size. And she's really fun. She likes to jump around and play a lot, and obviously has no interest in being the star of this video, but she's a lot of fun. These are the two newest additions to our herd. She's kind of sick of being held after her vaccinations, but this is Eclipse. She is an ADGA registered Nigerian dwarf doe. She had quadruplets a few weeks ago, and now she's part of our herd, and she's beautiful, and we're happy to have her. And we also have little Luna up here. Luna is a doeling. She was born about 8 to 10 weeks ago. She has beautiful blue eyes and very beautiful coloring, and we look forward to having her as part of our breeding herd of registered Nigerian dwarves here in a little while when she is large enough to be a breeder. And you might ask, how do you know when they're large enough? Not really an age thing. I do it more off of weight and size, so it's a little bit of an art and a little bit less of a science. Some people say they should be a certain number of months old, but you might get a really large and very healthy one that could potentially go in your breeding herd earlier than that. And likewise, sometimes you get some that for whatever reason are being slower growers, taking longer to mature, and you may then make the choice that you want to give them another year or another cycle to keep them out of breeding and put them in later for their own health and the health of their potential babies. If you choose to breed them too early and they're too small, that can lead to birthing complications. It could damage the mother. It could end up with a stillbirth or a baby that was squeezed too much on its way out because it was too large, and may not be stillborn but may die shortly thereafter. So obviously that's not your preference. You want to avoid that if at all possible. So you're looking for, again, it kind of depends a little bit, between 60 to 80% of the expected adult weight is sort of what I'm looking for. And the weight may vary depending on if they have a bigger build, then maybe I worry a little bit less about the actual weight. And if they're a more slender build, then I would be a little more concerned that their weight is on the higher end of that range. So that's a little bit about how to know when they're of breeding age/size. Another important thing to note about Nigerians and breeding is whether you have a Nigerian dwarf or you have pygmy or any kind of cross, a mini alpine, a mini Nubian, any of these goats that are not a full-size goat, you absolutely never want to breed a full-size buck with any kind of dwarf, pygmy, or mini doe unless they happen to be extremely large for their breed. You don't want to do this for the simple reason that the baby will grow according to its breed, and if it's a half full size in a small mom, the risk of complications and death to the mom are way higher than they would be in a dwarf on dwarf breeding. So you really want to do everything you can to avoid that you would get that type of a pregnancy. I do know of cases where people breed full-size bucks with dwarf does and they end up being okay, but that's an exception, not the norm, and is extremely discouraged. Now, doing the opposite, where you put a dwarf buck on a full-size doe, there's no danger in that. The mom is a full size, she will have a less than full size baby. There's no danger to the mom in doing that. So if you are seeking to do a crossbreed, make a mini alpine, for example, you're perfectly safe in taking a Nigerian dwarf buck and breeding him on a alpine doe. That's your best strategy for getting any of the so-called minis. Here we have 3 babies that we bought this year. We're working on upgrading our herd with some new genetics. So this is Destiny. This little hamster here is Tinkerbell, and this is Yulani. These are actually great representations of the 3 different breeds that we have here on our farm. So Tinkerbell is a Nigerian dwarf goat, Destiny is an alpine, and Yulani is a boar goat. And Tinkerbell and Destiny, as you might tell, are both bottle babies. Yulani's not. She nurses off of one of our moms. But very happily demonstrate bottle feeding for you. This is our herd of bucks. One myth we can dispel for you here today is you might hear people say that you can't keep bucks together because they fight. Well, I don't see a whole lot of fighting going on here. We have 15 bucks in this herd. A lot of them are younger, but we do have 1, 2, 3 senior bucks over here. Onyx is a yearling, so he's getting senior. I have a couple wethers in here. The rest are bucklings. But they live together pretty much year-round. We pull them out during breeding season to go with their various girls and do their jobs, but when it's not rut season is breeding season, they don't really mind to be together at all. They figure out who's boss and who's second and what the pecking order is, and then they pretty much just respect that and don't bother each other. So they're happy as can be together. There's no need to not have your buck have another boy buddy because they generally will do totally fine together. The first day or 2 might be kind of rough to watch. Maybe don't be home too much, because like all the goats, they need to figure out who's boss, and they will fight a little bit, but they figure it out, and then they're totally fine with each other 95% of the time. Another thing I could mention here before we get into the actual introduction, you will notice that some of them have horns. Most of them in here, I think, have horns, and there are a few who do not. So the tradition in the various breeds is the dairy breeds get their horns removed before they're even called horns. So they're called horn buds when they're born. All goats have, not all, most goats have horn buds. There is such a thing as a polled goat, which is a different gene that some goats inherit, which means they will never have horns. But all of the ones in here who don't have horns did have horn buds and were disbudded. Disbudding is something that we let our vet do for the goats under anesthesia. When they're a couple days old, they burn the horn buds with a very hot iron for just a couple seconds, and that heat kills the horn bud, so hopefully the goat will not grow horns. Sometimes that doesn't work out. We have a few that have what are called scurs, that are regrowths that are loose, and sometimes you even get fully regrown horns. If you see the spotted dwarf buck over on the hay bag there, his name is Zacho, we'll meet him in a minute. He was disbudded, but you would barely know it. He was disbudded at a bit older age, and those aren't even scurs, those are full-on horns that just grew back on him. Disbudding in dairy goats is something that's required if you want to show them, and I do not show, but I never know if a future owner might want to show, so I do follow the protocol, and when they're registered they are supposed to be disbudded. The goats with horns are meat breed goats. These are all boar bucklings that have the horns in here. So boar, alpine, boar. So horns serve purposes for the goats. They will use them to defend their positions. They will use them, as you might have seen in some of the videos, to scratch. If they have an itch, they'll bend their head back and use their horns to scratch with. And the other thing that they do for the goat is they act as a way to help the goat cool down. So the horns inside of them have blood vessels that flow all throughout, and the blood flow in the horns will help the blood to cool off because it's closer to the surface of the horn, so the heat can dissipate through the horns, and that's a cooling mechanism for them in the heat. Another thing to note is because they have a blood flow in there, you can't just cut them without a lot of blood loss. So if someone wants to actually dehorn a goat as opposed to disbudding, that is where you would ask your vet to surgically remove this horn, which is now firmly part of their actual skull. So that is a very, very intense surgical procedure. We actually did have that done on one of our bucks last year who had we thought was a scur that was growing sideways into his skull. So we had the vet do a surgery to remove what we thought was going to be a scur removal. Actually ended up being a dehorning, and that was a 8-week healing process. We had to change the dressing on every single day. If you don't have to dehorn a goat for its own health, I very strongly discourage doing a dehorning. It is a very difficult healing process for them, and the risk of infection is very high. Those sinus cavities that grow up through the horn are very close to their brains. Any kind of infection off of that surgery is very easy to be lethal for them. So do not recommend dehorning unless, again, it's for the goat's own safety or health. If you want a goat who doesn't have horns, then please try to get one who has been disbudded as a baby. Going now into introductions. In the corner laying down over there, we have our very handsome Lafayette. He is one of the 2 senior ADGA registered alpine bucks that we have in our herd. He had some very handsome babies for us the last few years, and he is currently the head of the herd. Over here we have our other senior alpine buck. His name is Rochambeau. We call him Beau for short. He is a year older than Laffy, but as of last rut season, they bought it out, and Laffy is now the head buck, and Beau is now the second in command. And laying down next to him, we have our very handsome Onyx. Onyx is a pure black goat. That's how we came up with the name Onyx. His official name is Off Death Row Onyx, and that is because he was either going home with us or he was going to be eaten by someone, and that is fine. We are not opposed to eating goats. We raise some sometimes for meat ourselves, but he was very handsome. He was very, very sweet, and we were looking for a breeding buck, so we decided to bring him home, and then he's Onyx Off Death Row. He had a couple very handsome boy babies this year and a girl baby. He is a 50% registered ABGA buck, and we are planning to use him for a lot of our boar breedings again this year. In our corner here, we have a very large clump of mainly bucklings. So most of these are this year's babies. Archie is not our baby. I bought him to add to our herd. He is an ADGA registered alpine. We were looking to bring in some fresh bloodlines, and he is a very sweet, very handsome boy. This is one of our alpine bucklings from this year. We tend not to name them if we know we are selling them, but we'll give them monikers, or we'll refer to them as whose baby they are. So this is Heidi's boy, and this is Cassie's boy. The other one that is Pepper's is outside, but they look pretty similar from the top. So we just, like I said, if we're not keeping them, we tend not to name them. This guy does have a name. He's a roadie. My son fell in love with him and begged me not to sell him, so he'll stay here with us instead. But most of our boar bucklings are for sale still, and we have placed quite a few of them with great homes and looking to move a couple more out of here in the next few weeks. This guy is Julian. Julian is a wether. Wether is the word you use for a castrated male goat. So he is not able to have babies because he's castrated. He is one we kept more as a pet. We are casually looking around for a really, really good pet home for him, so happy to move him out to the right family, but not in any rush, just waiting for the right family for that. In the back corner, if I move Julian, we could potentially see him a little better, is our very handsome Zacho. Zacho is a registered Nigerian dwarf buck. Very, very beautiful coloring on him and gorgeous blue eyes. We will be breeding him this year for sure with Violet, because our other buck is her dad, and plan to breed him with a couple other of our does as well, and really hoping to get some gorgeous babies out of him. This is Gretchen's boy. You can see he looks pretty much like his mom, and big, meaty boy. I said he was a single boy and grew appropriately because he put on a lot of weight, and Heidi's boy did as well. This is our very creatively named Red. He is a red boar buck. He is 2 years old. He is the dad of quite a few of our bucklings that we have this year, and some of the doelings as well. He's the dad of the quintuplets, for example, and he's got a great build to him. He is for sale. He's a very sweet boy, as you can see. He's very tame and easy to handle. We just are getting more into the registered boars, and he is what they call commercial grade, which means he's not registered, which means none of his kids can be registered unless their mom is 100% registered. So for practical purposes, we're looking for someone who needs a great commercial buck, but he is, like I said, easy to handle. That is something that we work on really hard with all members of our herd. They get their hooves done every couple of weeks. We check them out for their eyes, to check their anemia status at least once a month. This time of year, more like once every week or two. So we really want them to be somebody that we don't have to chase down and fight with. So we do work really hard on making sure they're tame and friendly. So that's Red. Over here at the hay bag, we have 3 bucklings. The one in the middle is Quasar. He is our gorgeous 100% ABGA registered buckling that we are excited to be using in a lot of our boar breedings this year. He's a very sweet boy as well, and like I said, just absolutely stunning coloring, and we're super excited to have added him to our herd. We have one of Dora's bucklings to the left. Dora, we recently moved on to a new home, so you didn't meet her because she's no longer at this farm, but she's found a great new home, and we're super excited about that. And at the back is Lulu's boy, and he is obviously a Kiko boar cross. He has a really nice build to him, and also a very, very sweet boy, very handsome. Behind us on the left, so behind us we have Blue. Blue is a registered Nigerian dwarf buck. He is very handsome, obviously has stunning blue eyes and a fantastic beard on him. I think I would name him Gandalf if I named him from this age. But he is Violet's dad. We met Violet over in the other herd a minute ago. And obviously we will not breed him back to Violet. We will let Zacho be Violet's mate this year. But we look forward to having some more babies out of him. He has a pretty high success rate of throwing blue-eyed babies. He is not homozygous for blue eyes. Blue eyes are actually dominant in goats, which is an interesting factoid. In humans, as you might know, the blue is a recessive eye color, but in goats it is dominant. If he was homozygous for blue eyes, that would mean that every single one of his kids would be blue-eyed. And we have had a couple brown-eyed kids out of his, but we've had far above 50%, which might mean that a couple years from now we only get brown-eyed. It might just be that it's a numbers game, but so far we've had more like 75 to 80% of kids coming out of him with blue eyes. 2 more guys to go. Over there we have, on the right is Flop, and on the left is a boy we call Pepper's boy. Again, he's for sale. He's always been for sale since the moment he was born. So rather than name him, we let the new owners have the pleasure of doing that, and we just provide him with the moniker Pepper's boy. Flop is, I believe, our only mini anything, because he is a mini alpine. His dad is blue, so his dad was a Nigerian dwarf. His mom is an alpine, who we also no longer have. Her name was Fennec, and that was a accident. The boys broke into the girls' area, and only one accidental pregnancy out of that whole event, which was pretty impressive, but that was Blue with Flop's mom, and Flop is super sweet. We kept him as a pet because my kids absolutely loved him. His name is Flop because when he was a baby in particular, you go sit anywhere and he'd come and just flop in your lap. Loved to get hugged, snuggled, would fall asleep on your lap within 2 minutes. Very, very sweet boy. Blue eyes. Again, he has blue eyes, which is just very handsome. He, like Julian, is available for a good pet home, but again, we're not in any kind of rush with that, so just waiting for the right family who wants a really nice pet. That is Red again. Red, like I said, is very friendly. Another myth I could dispel for you here today, you can see among our buck group, we have some bucks with horns and we have some bucks without horns, and we have that in our doe herds as well. And people will say, well, you can't keep a horned goat with a not horned goat. We do. We don't have any problem with that. The horned goats often end up being the more dominant in the herd because when they're arguing amongst themselves, obviously if you have horns, it doesn't hurt as much to ram somebody in the head as if you don't have horns. You're going to get a headache faster and give up sooner. But that being said, Red is not the dominant buck in our herd. That is Lafayette, and Bo is second, so he's number 3 in the herd. Even though he has a very impressive set of horns on him, the other 2 bucks still are the bosses, and that's just going to show that just because you have horns doesn't mean you're aggressive, stronger, doesn't mean you have to be the boss. You can definitely have a success of keeping horned and not horned goats together.
Kitties! This is Pascal. He is a little bit over a year old, and all of our cats are rescued. He's very friendly and loves cuddles, and he'll jump on your shoulder sometimes. He loves to help around the barn, and he's very good at catching mice. Chrissy is our only girl cat, and you can see that she's missing both her ears, and that's just because she's had a couple little accidents along the way. She's our best hunter, and she's always on the prowl. This is Tony. He's our oldest cat, and he's missing all his teeth, so we call him Toothless Tony. He's a little gangbosser, and he loves cuddles, and he's a little bit fat, but that's all right because we still love him. So these are our dogs. This one's Star, that one's Nova. Star is a Canary Mastiff. He is a very calm, non-energetic dog. He likes to just sit around at the barn in some shade and kind of just chill out. And then here's our dog Nova, our other one, who has the exact opposite personality. She is very energetic. She is a chocolate lab, and she just turned 1 year old on December 12th. Star turns 9 in August. So we're looking forward to his birthday. One really fun thing about Nova is that no matter how many times you'll throw a toy for her, she'll keep chasing after it, and she doesn't seem to get tired of it, ever. And Star is the opposite. He will not chase a toy. He just wants to lay down. One of my personal favorite things about Star is how calm he is, because if Nova is really energetic, she's being actually quite calm right now, but if she's being really energetic, you can't pet her or anything like that. You can only really wait for her to burn off her energy, but Star is always going to be pretty calm and pettable. Nova also likes to chase my sister's cat, Pascal, around a lot. She generally thinks that they're having fun, but Pascal doesn't usually think so.
Hi, so now it's time to meet our horses. We have 4 horses, 2 full-size and 2 miniature horses. This gentleman here, his name is Tic Tac. He has been with us for about 9 years at this point. He's estimated to be close to about 20 years old. Getting a good view of his eyeball up close, I guess, because he decided he needs to be right in here on the action. He is most likely a pony of the Americas, but he's a rescue, so we don't fully know his whole story. He was with the Amish, we believe, and then sold on to someone else who eventually sold him into a slaughter auction. unfortunately, at a pretty young age, and a friend of mine rescued him from the slaughter auction and kept him for a few years while she was looking for just the right family, and eventually that's how he ended up with us. So he is a rescue. Actually, all 4 of our horses are rescues in one way or another. This miniature guy here, his name is Lando, and he is the youngest member of our herd. Maybe we're gonna need to walk in here and get around Tic Tac, who's being a little bit of a camera hog. So this little guy is Lando. He is a miniature horse, as is his friend here, Katie. And now he's gonna get up in the camera. So Lando is the youngest member of our herd. He is approximately 6 years or so old. He was a stallion when we were about to buy him, and the woman we bought him from had him gelded shortly before we got him, so we didn't have to deal with the whole stallion situation. He is very sweet and the low man on the totem pole in the herd, so he is kind of the one that gets the last chance to eat, but he's also the one who is the most prone to being overweight, so that's actually a pretty good combination because the other horses kind of keep him on his diet, which he's not a fan of, but it is good for his health. So he has been with us for about 3 years now, and when we got him, we were only planning to get one miniature horse, but the little girl behind him, her name is Katie, and we ended up getting her at the same time because she was very, very bonded to him, and we just felt bad taking him and leaving her behind. So she has really beautiful eyes. One is blue and the other one is half blue, half brown, which is really uncommon in horses. So that's just a pretty cool characteristic that she has. Katie was rescued by the lady that I got the 2 of them from. She had severely overgrown hooves to the extent that even when I got her a few months after she was rescued, her legs were twisted and distorted to the extent that our farriers weren't sure if the bones were permanently deformed, but they and I have been working on correcting that for the past 3 years, and it's truly amazing to see the healing power of the body and how taking good care of someone can make such a difference in their life. And her legs are almost entirely straight at this point. They may still improve further. It just is a matter of time to see what they do, and we're really excited about that. But her hooves are way better, and she's so much more comfortable than she was when she was first rescued, so that's just wonderful to see. A lot of people unfortunately love horses and don't realize how much work they are. Their hooves should be trimmed every 4 to 6 weeks, and that is either time consuming if you do it yourself or costly if you have a professional do it for you. And a lot of people either can't afford it or don't realize that that is what needs to be done. But a hoof is like your fingernail. I mean, it actually is a type of fingernail from when horses evolved. One of their toes came down and created that hoof. So it's just a continually growing nail that needs to be trimmed constantly. And if you don't do that, then it causes deformities in the foot and the leg and can cause major health problems for them. But Katie's a super sweet girl. She was very shy when we first got her, but she's really warmed up a lot. And one problem that she does still struggle with is she seems to have an allergy to fly bites. So if you see her just now biting at herself, the fly bites really bother her. So we do have her on some natural supplements to try and minimize the allergy that she has there. And it's a bit of a struggle in the summer months for her, but she's been doing better since we did the supplements for her. Our final Star, the oldest member of our herd, who's also been with me the longest, is Max. He was born in 2021. He is therefore 23 years old. He is half standardbred, half quarter horse. He has been with me since 2004, so 20 years now we've known each other and been friends, and he is my gentle giant. He absolutely loves children, especially little children. They can run right up to him and hug him, and he is very protective of children. He'll keep the other horses away from them and try to take care of them. On one of the farms that I boarded him at before I had my own farm, he would actually take in weanling horses who were in the process of being weaned from their mom, and he would kind of be their big brother and take care of them and keep them out of trouble and keep the other horses from pestering them. So he definitely has a strong nurturing side to him. He can be a little bit of a grumpy old man, and that's, he's getting a bit older now, so that's probably a little bit of his right that he can be a little bit more picky about who he wants to hang out with. But he definitely prefers women over men. Some animals have that kind of gender preference, and he is one of them. He must have had in his past some worse experience with a man and doesn't care for them as much as women. But like I said, his favorite type of people are young children, and he really enjoys hanging out with kids. Thanks for joining us. The goats and I look forward to seeing you again next time.